So welcome to video number 7 of the restoration of my 1960 Piper Pacer fuselage. So this is the 7th video. I hope you have watched all the other ones. So anyhow, I finished the headliner as far as I can in the video number 6. I leave a link up above, and so now in this video I'm gonna keep working on putting everything on that I need to have on the airframe before I can cover it. So that means putting the wires on, everything that goes on top of the cabin for the dome light. I run wires for the shoulder lights. I probably put the antenna wires already at least laying in there, so later I can just fish them through the holes. I have a COM1 antenna and a GPS antenna here on top. The COM1 is left, I believe, and the GPS was on the right. I have to verify that. And then also I did buy insulation, so I will put the insulation on top of the fuselage, or above the headline, I should say. And here in the back, of course, I have to put the static ports back in, and also run tail wires and the antenna for the VOR glide slope antenna, which goes back here, and the rest of control cables, which is just the rudder cables and the elevator cables, and then I'm ready to cover. So I know it still sounds a lot, so let's see if we get it all done in this video. Otherwise I will cut it in two and make 2 videos of it. So let's get going. And first thing, I sometimes have people come to the hangar here and because they want to look at the project, and sometimes I think, well, a radar would be working, but they ask questions, and they ask me questions sometimes how it works. And a guy came by and asked me about the trim system, so I demonstrated it, and I noticed that I screwed up. This, when you look at this here, the balancing cable I laid on top of the cable that runs to the back, and that's wrong. So before I do anything else, I have to take this apart and fix this, because if it's worth doing once, it's worth doing twice to get it right. So unfortunately, sometimes that happens, that I have to do things twice. So I have to take the tension pulley off, and then get this all off, and then see how I can rerun the cable, so that this still has to come. The left cable still goes in the top pulley, but then when it comes around, it should go underneath and then run into the lower pulley for the wire or the cable then to run back on the lower pulley on the right hand side. So let's get that done first. So after the headliner went in, I'm working on putting control cables in. So here, of course, is the trim system. I think I showed that before. So I put the elevator cables back in, including here the part of the elevator cables that are actually connected to the trim screw. I tied everything up here in with tie wraps, because it has to stay here until I get the cover on. I also put the VOR antenna back in, because that has to go, at least the one side has to go through the fabric. And I don't know, probably what I'm saying now is obvious, and everybody does it anyway, but one of these screws is also the ground for the VOR antenna and for my tail light, for the strobe. So what I do is, of course, this is all freshly painted, so you clean off some area here to get ground contact. But before I put cover on and everything, I actually then put the ground strap for the battery on, Also had to remove some paint here to make sure I have good contact. And then when I do any cables that have to, that are ground cables, I then test them. I have this long wire here that I use, and to make sure that, oops, let me untie this here for a moment. Get it wrapped around my cables. So, and then before I cover the airplane and then find out I have a ground problem, I make sure that I actually make contact. And in this case, when I tested it first, I didn't scrape off enough paint on the underneath here. So now I have contact, and I can be sure that at least I will have ground to my taillight and to the VOR antenna before I close everything up. And as I'm putting the control cables back in, of course all control cables get cleaned and inspected. And I have two cables. I'm not sure if this shows here, how well it shows. This is the lower part of the flap cable, and there's just a little fray here on one of the strands of the cable. Of course, when you clean the cables and you use a rag, your rag gets caught and you know right away that you have a bad cable. So the lower flap control cable needs to be replaced. And then also here, not again sure how this will show on the camera, but here also right here where my finger is right now, the cable, this is the left rudder cable. The cable is also frayed. So I need two new cables. So I'm getting closer and closer of that I can put the fabric on. Here I put the static ports back in, routed the lines, or the static line all the way to the front. And I also finished putting nut plates everywhere where the belly pans attach later. And in one of my previous videos, maybe it was video 1 or 2, I showed how much dirt had collected in these U-channels here. And I was thinking about how can I prevent it for the future. One of my followers suggested to glue wooden pieces in there. That would definitely work. But I was concerned about future maintenance or repairs, because then these wooden pieces that you glue in there would be probably hard to get out. So I used aluminum HVAC tape and just laid tape over all these U-channels to prevent any dirt falling in there. And if I have to get in there to do some repair in the future, I can just peel it off, do whatever I need to do, or if I have to put new nut plates in the front, and then seal it up again. So I can only recommend, when you have extra time, take your floorboards out, because here in the back, this part here will only get, at least if you take these floorboards out, so seats have to come out too, but and see how much dirt and gum has actually collected in these channels, and then just clean them out. So only a small recommendation. So on I go now. Gonna start putting insulation on top of the cabin, so I can get closer to covering the airplane. So I'm starting now working on putting insulation in on top of the cabin, basically above the headliner. This is the insulation that I purchased, and I looked at the drawings, and the drawings just say that there's insulation, but it doesn't really say how it goes on. So I think the best is to just cut it in sections, also that creates the least waste. And there's, here I can tuck the insulation in here, then lay it here on top. It will be nicely under the fabric. After the fabric goes in, do some cutouts here for the for the nuts here for the pulleys, and then just keep working my way back here. Now I understand what this thing is for. It's probably just to make sure that the installation doesn't push on the trim pulleys here. So I have to work that in, and then yeah, just keep just working it in and see how it goes. So here's the first piece of insulation. I cut it 17 inches wide and it's 4 feet long. And let's see how I can just trim it and get it to tuck in there. So first of all, so here I wanted to, so this spot here I wanted to actually be held down. So got my curved needle here that I use for rib stitching my wings. So let's get this in the right position first, and then just go through here. Okay, around this V-brace. And the top of the cabin is done. So got the insulation on. Here's where this is the GPS antenna, and I put all nut plates in here. Same for the COM antenna. So that will make it easy to install this afterwards. Got this all done here, and now I can move on to do on the sides. So that will be the next step. So this is the trim indicator wire. So it just comes out here. So I had to notch this out a little bit. I did some stitching here, and of course it's stitched here. So that keeps it all out of the way, and there's no interference here. So that looks good. So, and we're at the end of video number, I think, 7. I'm as far as I can go right now on the airframe before I can put the cover on. Got all the insulation on, everything is done. I just have a few things left on my checklist here, and they are in order. I need parts. One is a new ELT that will be mounted behind the luggage compartment. So I want to do that before I put the cover on. And the other thing is I have to finish putting the control cables on to the back, but I had 2 cables that were frayed. One is the lower flap cable and one is the left rudder cable. So they are also in order. So as soon as they get in, I can put the cables in, put the LT in, and I'm ready to put fabric on the airplane. So, but in the meantime, I have plenty of other things to do. So see you in the next video.